I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited to be here for the 50th anniversary of the Center for Demographic and Urban Environmental Studies, for Sedgwick's 50th anniversary. And it's such a treat to teach here in Mexico City because the students at the center, they're so smart and they're so serious about what they're doing, and it's wonderful in that respect. But then also, as a professor back in the United States, I've taught 3 different people who are faculty here, and I'm so proud to see how well that they've turned out and to see the vibrant environment that the center offers. Well, so far it's been an exercise in humility because a lot of the research hasn't replicated and hasn't worked out very well. I'm optimistic about the future, but I think one of the big lessons so far for demography is primarily methodological. It's about the importance of statistical power. It's about the importance of making sure that you have a large enough sample that if effects are really there, you'll be able to detect them. Because otherwise, you're just going to end up with a lot of false discoveries. And demographers in general aren't taught very much about statistical power because demographers usually work with data where they can't control the sample size. So if you can't control the sample size, why study statistical power? But you can affect whether or not you asked a question in the first place. And in order to ask a research question, you need to make sure that question has enough statistical power, or you're just leading yourself down the path to false discoveries. Well, I think that genetic data really shows the importance of psychology to demography. Demographers haven't done much with psychological theorizing, and we really need to come up with theories of behavior and how behaviors produce the phenomenon that demographers study. That is, it's easy to sort of say that one big population variable causes another big outcome, but we need to understand the actual mechanisms of behavior. And genetics are good for that because it's not, genes don't just influence behavior through some mysterious means, right? Genes have to actually influence the organism. There's a bottleneck that is the human body. Genes affect bodies and bodies affect behavior. And so if we can actually specify those pathways, we can understand behavior better, whether or not we're talking about genetics particularly. But genes really reinforce the need to actually have a psychological theory of why we think people behave the way that they do, even when we're doing population research. Yeah, I think in going forward, what's incredibly clear is the need for big samples. And so what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot more unions between major data sets and bringing together a lot of different kinds of data resources. We're also going to see an explosion in the interdisciplinary work. And demography is such a great interdisciplinary enterprise as it is, but we're going to see bringing together teams of doctors and geneticists and social researchers to come together to understand how genes and environments work together to produce behaviors that then we can see at the population level. Yeah, obviously people should be very concerned with data security in studying genotypes. What's very sensitive about genetic information is that you can learn things about respondents that they don't themselves know. So that's very different from surveys where they've told you each bit of information. You might learn something that they themselves don't know. And one issue that's going to be important going forward is understanding what kind of information we need to provide to our respondents about risks we find out about. Now, so far, in general, what you learn are such small differences in risk that it doesn't make any difference. But it's not clear that that's going to continue to be the case. Either way, people are very sensitive about genetic information because they're worried that they could be discriminated against for insurance or for other purposes. And so the privacy of that data is paramount. At the same time, it can't be emphasized enough that we really what you can tell from someone's genome, unless they have a rare disease or something, but from the typical person's genome, you really can't tell that much about them from their genome that you can't tell just from looking at it. You can tell I'm white from my genome, but we can tell I have brown eyes, but you can tell that just from looking at me. Otherwise, you really can't see that much from the genome. Whereas, right, in our society now, if you had the history of my Google searches or the history of my Facebook behavior, you could tell a lot about me. That data exists right now in private hands without any strictures on how it's used. So obviously, security for genetic data is vital and important, but we should recognize that in terms of the overall data that we have about people, the data right now that is unsecured and out there is a very serious issue.